I first met Scott Hamilton several years ago when some mutual friends introduced us. And it was there over a cup of coffee that I heard the story of an Olympic champion, a four-time world champion, about a man who was known for doing a backflip while on ice skates. I also heard a fabulous story about life and about how you deal with life when sometimes it brings you something that you really don't want. And what I learned from Scott is no matter what is in front of you, you have the choice to deal with it positively, to lean into it. This is what the gospel of yes is about. The ability to find God's yes for you no matter what the circumstances. And Scott Hamilton is a great teacher of that lesson. Here's Scott. Well, Scott, welcome. Thanks for giving us a few minutes out of your day. I'm
That's great.
To welcome you to my office and to this interview.
Mm-hmm.
What an incredible and interesting journey you've had. I feel like we can start from where we are now and go back.
How much time you got?
Or we can start. We can start. You know, from you trying to learn how to skate and that whole process of, you know, I read your story and it's almost like you have stepped off into nothing several times. Mm-hmm. And there's been something come under you to catch you. You're almost like that cartoon character who walks across the building site and there's always the steel beam coming up out there to do that.
I haven't thought about it that way, but that kind of covers it. It's amazing how, I've been knocked down a bunch of times, and each time it just seems like there's someone, something, some moment that sort of brings me back. And it's been kind of like a extreme roller coaster, where the highs have been as high as they can go and the lows have been almost as low as they can go. But it's amazing how, I learned kind of halfway through my adolescence to sort of participate in it. And it was a couple of big decisions that just sort of, and it speaks to your yes thing, but that sort of allowed me to be able to withstand a few of the other knockdowns and bumps in the road.
Okay, you said you've learned to participate in it. Unpack that a little bit for me.
Well, when I was younger, I was sick as a child, and then I found skating, and that kind of got me through that. And I was a serial underachiever, and my mother was always the most important person in my life. I was adopted, and so as the first adopted child, I was pretty spoiled. Mm-hmm. I had whatever I want, whatever. And so when I got into skating, she was my biggest fan, and around the time I was finishing up on the junior level, she got sick with cancer. And after my first year in the senior level of competition, she died of cancer, and it was there that I had to make a decision. I had to figure out where to channel my grief, and I just decided to throw it all into my skating. And so from going from serial underachiever after that, I kind of overachieved, and it wasn't, I felt like it was just sort of, it was that catalyst of get on your horse. This woman gave up everything for you, and it's time for you to get out there and do what you have to do to honor her memory and honor her sacrifice and everything that she's done for you.
Mm-hmm. It's interesting that you said, this is what I chose to do with my grief. Mm-hmm. This is because grief, anger, all of these are energy.
Yeah.
That's what they are. They are energy. And we have the ability to choose how we invest that energy. We can allow it to go negative, or in your case, you chose to go positive with it.
I try to learn from the people around me. I just try to learn. You can step left, you can step right, you can step forward, and I just decided that the best way for me to honor her and the best way I could, for me to get past a lot of my years of underachieving were to kind of make it real.
Okay, so you're on top of the world, and then you get a doctor's report.
Yes. After the Olympics in '84, I turned pro because I was broke and living in a friend's basement. That kind of ran. They were kind of ready to get me out the door, and so I went into ice capades for a couple of years and learned a lot. And then they let me go because I wasn't a female, and they only wanted to present female stars. The new owner coming in. Mm-hmm. And so I started a tour called Stars on Ice, and soon after Ice Capades went out of business, I say that because I'm passive aggressive, A lot of those skaters came to us, and it was in year 11 that 50 cities into a 60-city tour, I couldn't stand up straight anymore. And I went into an emergency room in Peoria just to get something just to take the pain in my abdomen away. And they said, well, there's a mass, and it's either benign, malignant, or something else. But if it were, and this was the doctor said in his own words, if it were me, I'd take care of this thing right away. And it was there that he was, as kindly and as softly as he possibly could, he was diagnosing me with cancer. And when I did the math immediately, so I remember what my mother went through with her chemotherapy and surgeries and everything else, the fear was extraordinary. But it was soon replaced with the opposite of all the initial emotions of the fear, anxiety, and feeling I was going to suffer and diminish and all those things. It was kind of like I became powerful, and I realized that this is my battle. This was my next big thing was going to be ridding myself of this cancer and getting back to my life. And it was funny how my mother showed up again. She was there. The way that she handled her cancer was extraordinary. Mm-hmm. She would always find humor in everything. She would be the one that says, oh, I finally found a way to lose weight. This chemotherapy stuff is great. And I was like, really? And her hair fell out, so she got a wig, and she goes, this is so much easier.
Most people would say, okay, this is cancer, I've got to get away from it, I've got to act like it's not affecting me. But your choice was to turn and actually face the beast.
Oh, yeah.
And just say yes to it and whatever it brought and kind of squeeze the marrow out of it.
There's nothing in my life experience that didn't affect the next thing. It was like, this made this happen, this made this happen, this made this happen. In so many respects, the cancer is the only way I ever would have met Tracy.
Well, there's your love story.
Yeah, in a way, yeah. But it was like that. I realized that I was living a life that I was struggling with,
mm-hmm.
And it was just, it wasn't right, and I needed to change it. Something was broken, damaged, kind of off where I needed to be, and I kind of kept hearing that whispered in my ear, is like, you need to make a change, you need to get out of here. So I moved to the only place in the United States where I could be completely isolated and alone, and that was Los Angeles, California. It's true how isolated and alone you can be in Los Angeles. And I went there and kind of like healed up physically, healed up emotionally, and then I met Tracy, and then the rest of it started healing. My journey, my faith just has spiked since I've been with Tracy. When you meet somebody like her, and you realize that she's kind of interested in you, mm-hmm. and the faith component is that's a deal breaker. And I had my own level of faith. I was in an adolescence, is the best way to put it. I was angry, mm-hmm. and I wasn't angry with God at all. I mean, I felt like I was blessed beyond my wildest dreams. I was angry at what people did to God. Mm-hmm. This is how God works. He put me with a woman that was going to take me to a minister that would just walk me out of my adolescence. Mm-hmm. I was 40-something years old, and I'm an adolescent. Aiden was born, and we realized that life had changed in a great way, in a spectacular way, and then a second child was definitely something that we desired. But it was when Aiden was 14 months old that I knew something was wrong again, and I didn't know what it was. And so I went back to the Cleveland Clinic, and they found a pituitary brain tumor. And that was a big day, because Tracy was arriving that day in Cleveland because I had my annual cancer benefit, and she knew something was wrong, and so she got off the airport shuttle, and she goes, everything okay? And I go, I'll tell you upstairs. And she knew something was wrong. And so when we get up to the hotel room, and Aiden's taking the phone off the cradle and banging on it, and just doing what 14-month-old kids do, and she goes, what's going on? I go, I have a brain tumor. I have a brain tumor. which at the time didn't seem fair.
Right.
And she just took both my hands and started to pray. Didn't hesitate. Not a bit of hesitation, not another question about it, nothing. Just shunk, head down, pray. And it was a catalyst for everything else. Because it was there I realized, like, oh, what am I doing? Mm-hmm. This is where it goes. This is where everything goes. The good, the bad, the ugly. Mm-hmm. Everything goes to Him. And after that prayer, we spent the next week trying to figure out what the brain tumor was. And at the end of the day, it turns out that I was born with it. It's the reason I'm not your height. Yeah, it's what my childhood illness was probably based on the... Yeah, but they didn't have the technology to find a brain tumor. And for whatever reason, during those years that I was on the ice, it didn't do its mischief at all. And then once I retired to kind of be with the family, it said, okay, I'm back. And again, it's all kind of perspective, because I could look at that brain tumor as being a horrible thing. It made me undersized, it made me underdeveloped, I was picked on in school. I mean, it was just, I could look at all the negative things, or I can look at it that it made everything possible.
Including the famous backflip on it.
Everything, yeah. If I would have been 6, 7 inches taller, who would I be? I wouldn't be a skater. Yeah. I would have been a bad skater if I would have been a skater. But it's all perspective, and I realize more and more that it's not so much what the issue is; it's how you deal with it or how you look at it. You know, that why me thing, that kicks in all the time. That's human nature. That's going to happen. It's like, oh man, enough. Mm-hmm. When the brain tumor came back in 2010 and the surgery didn't go well, and then the 9 more surgeries, it was like, oh, why? What is this? And it's all good. Mm-hmm. You know, at the end of the day, you walk away from it and you go, wow, I learned a lot. Mm-hmm. I learned more about myself. I learned more about, what I can take. And it's amazing, if we have the attitude of leaning into something, instead of cowering away from it, how much greater the experience is of just kind of facing things and just doing it. Like I tell my kids, all the time, it's like, you're going to mess up, and there's going to be consequences. If you own it, consequences not so bad. Yeah. If you hide from it, or run away from it, or lie about it, consequences are going to be really bad. So I think that's why confession's such a big deal.
Oh yeah, that's what I tell the church. Confession is not a time to beat yourself up, but it is a time to own it.
Yeah, that's it. Do the best you can, and if you can impact somebody positively, then wow, it's a blessing.
Well, I'm one of those guys you've impacted, and I'm grateful for it.
Well, thanks
for your time, Scott Hamilton.
Thank you.
Thanks for dropping by.
Yeah.